to the episode 2 of Learning SwiftUI. Hopefully, you guys have downloaded Xcode 12. So, we are going to be building something like a login page in SwiftUI. So, make sure that your settings look something like this. Make sure the language is selected as Swift and the lifecycle is a SwiftUI app. This is something that was introduced recently in SwiftUI. So it completely does away with the app delegate. And hopefully, in this app, I could show you some of the examples. And for now, I'll not include tests and click next. So as you can see, we already have something designed for us. And I'm just going to click run and see what appears. Right, so I'm gonna just change it to iPhone 11 Pro just because gives me more area to work with. So the first thing that you will notice is that SwiftUI has already added a Hello World syntax here. So I'm just gonna remove that for now. And what I'm going to do is create at state private var username as a string. So what I've done is I've added a at state, and we use at state to keep a property persistent in memory as long as the view exists. So just going to call it just for your benefit. And we're not going to worry too much about the warnings at this point. And basically, we also need a password. I'm just gonna quickly add that. Now, what I would like to do first is add a VStack here. And inside that, I'm going to add a text saying welcome. So let's see and run this now. Okay, so Xcode is giving us warning that at state is not uh, permitted, and that's because the S in state should be capital. So we got that sorted out. Now let's just try and run our preview again. And as you can see, I get a text saying welcome, which is pretty good. Let me add an exclamatory sign for excitement. And now I'm going to play with the fonts. So font dot, as you can see, we have large title, and I'm going to make it bold. So font weight as bold. I'm going to also add padding to this. So padding is a nice way to add spacing. So that's what it looks like. If I add 50, it would bring down the UI by this much. 150 brings down the UI this much. So that's there. Now let's add a text field called username. So that just binds your variable right here. Let me just try and show you what I used here. So this is the Xcode completion block for this. And you can add password, text field, and password right there. So as you can see, our login screen is already shaping up somewhat, but yeah, we still need to do a lot of adjustments. So as you can see, it's really easy to build something like this in SwiftUI. And what I'm going to do now is just add a little bit of fancy properties like font, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper and add a system size here of 25. And then I'm also going to add a padding of say 10. So that just adds the overall padding as 10. And now I'm just going to add um, a background. Let's say color.yellow. Now I want to do the same thing to the password field, but let's get to the password field later and try to customize the username text field first. So what I would like to do is try to create some sort of a capsule shape around the username. So what I'm going to add is a really cool property called clip shape, and that should be of the shape capsule, right? So you can see how nice that looks. And now I'm going to add some sort of padding to it. 50. So padding is your way of adding constraints. So you can add leading constraint. So that just adds 50 leading constraint from here. And I could also add a trailing constraint. Right, so that just cuts off 50 from the left side and 50 from the right side. So that's padding property. And then I can add a foreground color. Now before I add foreground color, let me show you what the actual behavior is at the moment. So as you can see, this is a text field and I can write my name here. But suppose I would like to change the color of the text to white, then what I would do is add a foreground color right here, and that should be foreground color, color dot init of the type color, and in that I would define dot white, and let's add a little bit of opacity to that, say 0.75. That should be perfect. So now as you can see, I can see the name in white color. Brilliant. So now I want to make my UI even prettier. So what I would like to do is add a shadow, and inside that I would define a color of the type color dot yellow, and radius of the size 10, x value 0, and y value 0. So if I just resume my preview, as you can see, that has added a really nice yellow to my view. Cool. So looks like I'm happy with it. And can you guys now pause this video and design the password field? Well, hope that was really easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the text field and paste it here. So that becomes my password field. Pretty cool and pretty simple, right? Now let's go ahead and run this. So it still says username. That's because we haven't edited this. Let's go ahead and run it again. So this time it says username, which is fine. Password. So usually your password should be hidden, right? While you're typing. And for that, we would use secure field. I'm just going to run it again just to show you guys what the difference is. Now when I type my password, you can see that it's hidden. So now that that is done, let's add a button and with an action. And the action is basically Let's say I just want to print the username and password. So this will just print username and password as the string. But if I wanted to print the value of username and password, then I will have to add it inside this very common Swift syntax. So that is reference to this. That's why I've added a self. And so you can write it either like this, which is a self reference to this, or you could add underscore. Just to keep it consistent, I would add a self. And that's it. That prints your button and the text. Okay, so the text should say login. Right, now let me just add some padding to the button. Okay, so we are not seeing the preview, and this happens quite a lot with the preview section. And what you have to do is just give resume, and you can see that login button has popped up, but it's not really in the style of the entire UI what we are trying to design. So let's make it more or less of the same style. And what I would like to do is just copy over most of the stuff and see what happens. Cool. So that gave me a button that looks exactly like the other stuff. I'm probably going to change this to color red, and I'm also going to change the shadow to red. Nice. So that completes the UI right here. And if I just wanted to change one more thing, that would be the system font size, and everything else looks perfect. So let me add a spacer right here. And what spacer does is it pushes your UI. So in this case, the spacer has pushed the UI to the left side, which is not what I was going for. I'm going to add the spacer right here inside the bottom of my V stack. And as you can see, that has pushed the entire UI to a little bit up right in the center. And it's in a nice distance from the top of the page. And let's run it. So as you can see, our UI is completely done. And we also have a button which prints my name in a weird way. Anyway, so if we were to test this on another device, you need not, run it again. What you can do is you can just multiply this. I'm saying multiply. You can just add another preview, and that adds a preview right below the existing preview. And then you can select a device, let's say iPad. So if I were to check how it looks on an iPad, I could just do it right here without even trying to, run it on an iPad. Right, so that's how it looks like in an iPad. And we also have a phone preview right here. And if you were to notice, a couple of things that you should see in SwiftUI, this entire thing consists of the view that will represent your UI. And then you have content view previews that will show up the preview device. In this case, my second preview was iPad Pro 11-inch second gen, which I added right now. And I could just delete the content view preview by deleting this line right here. And if I wanted to add it back, I could just Command Z, and the view is added back. Cool, right? So the UI looks okay, but what if I were to make it even better for, let's say, iPad? And what we can do in that case is change the padding, because padding affects your button size. So basically, if I add a trailing and leading padding of 50, that means that even on an iPad, that would, defy 50 spaces to left and right. But I think I don't want that to happen. So my other option is to go with frame. What frame does is it has all the adjustments that you need, say width, height, and alignment. And in this case, I can define a standard width of 200 and a height of, let's say, 80 and an alignment center. Oops, that just, yep. So what that does is that just changes the UI in iPad and iPhone. So I think 280 looks better. And I'm going to do the same thing to my secure field. So this is way better than adding padding. And if I were to make this UI sort of minimal, then what I would do is, first of all, add a background color. So color dot yellow. Let edges ignore safe area, and that should be all. So what it does is it fills out this entire area with yellow color, and that looks okay, but it leaves me with this weird white edges. And in iOS 14, there's a thing called lazy VStack, which basically fills out this left and right corners of your UI because it's lazy and it's unable to determine how much size is required. But again, the problem is that I'm left with these weird white spaces all around my UI. And for that, basically, what I would do is I'll take the entire UI and I'll add it in an edge stack. So there goes my edge stack. Right, so this is in the edge stack now, and I want to apply the background color here. So as you can notice, that still did not do much. So what I'm going to add is to my edge stack, I'm going to add alignment properties. Alignment dot top, spacing 0, and I'm gonna add alignment here as well. Alignment dot center, spacing 30. Now I'm gonna add a spacer right here. And just to push the entire thing upwards, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another VStack with a spacer. And that just fills your entire UI and makes it so much more cooler and minimal. And if you want, you could just, you know, remove all the unnecessary code at this point, which would be the shadows of the buttons. And just to go with the theme here, I think we should add a foreground color as white. Cool. Let's see what we got here. And there it is. That's a pretty minimal UI that we have come up with. Right, so hopefully that was helpful. I really didn't think of doing much here other than, give a quick walkthrough what SwiftUI has to offer and how quickly you can build interfaces like this. And hopefully see you guys in the next one.